The flood of cheap goods from China, threat to the world's factories. How safe is India? Imagine, inside a small garment factory in Indonesia early in the morning, the sound of machines suddenly begins to slow down. The owner has the order book in his hand, but there are no new orders written in it, only cancellations. Workers are asking, "Sir, will we get our salary now or will the factory shut down?" At the same exact time, a car company in Germany is sitting in its meeting room and looking at the prices of Chinese electric vehicles on the screen. Everyone is silent. Automakers in Brazil are demanding an investigation from the government, and countries in Southeast Asia are afraid that America might consider them as a route for China and hit them with tariffs too. The fear starts right from here. Because China is no longer just selling goods to America, it is unleashing the full power of its manufacturing in every market around the world. And the curiosity is, when America wants to stop China by imposing tariffs, why does China not weaken but instead becomes an even greater threat to more countries? The world has seen a China shock once before. During that era, China made such cheap goods that many factories in America and Europe began to close, jobs were lost, and the balance of global trade changed. But what is happening now is being seen by many experts as China Shock 2.0. The only difference is that earlier China was surprising the world with low-cost toys, clothes, furniture and electronics. Now that same China is playing the exact same game with electric vehicles, solar panels, batteries, chips, machinery and high-tech products. Meaning, China is not just manufacturing cheaply, it is challenging the entire global manufacturing sector on the back of scale, technology and government support. America thought that if tariffs were imposed on China, the speed of Chinese exports would break. But the data tells a different story. In 2025, China's total trade surplus reached a record level of around $1.189 trillion, meaning that despite the tariffs, China sold a massive amount to the world and bought comparatively less from the world. Exports grew too, and China largely balanced the decline in America through markets like Southeast Asia, Europe, Africa and Latin America. This is the real concern, because if America closes China's gate, the Chinese goods start spreading into the world from another direction. China's own compulsion is hidden behind this export strategy as well. Its domestic economy is not as strong as it looks from the outside. The property sector has been in a crisis for a long time, many developers are under pressure, the demand for houses has weakened, and the confidence of the common people has also waned. When houses do not sell and construction slows down, it affects the entire chain, from cement, steel, furniture, appliances and finance, all the way to jobs. In such a scenario, the question before the Chinese government was, where will growth come from? The answer found was, manufacturing. Meaning, if domestic demand is weak, sell outside. This exact strategy is now becoming a problem for the world. Government support and industrial policy are nothing new in China. In 2015, through policies like Made in China 2025, China increased its focus on high-value manufacturing. The motive was clear. China should not remain just a factory for cheap goods, but should become a world leader in sectors like chips, robotics, EVs, aerospace, green energy and advanced machinery as well. But after the property crisis, this push became even faster. The government diverted the direction of credit, subsidies and policy support toward manufacturing. The result was that in many sectors in China, the production capacity became far greater than the demand. Now think, if factories in a country are producing way too much output, but domestic buyers are unable to buy that much, what will companies do? They will lower prices, cut margins and export the goods. This is exactly what China is doing. That is why a price war is visible in the EV market, oversupply is visible in solar panels, pressure is visible in steel and chemicals, and that same old pressure is returning to consumer goods too. For China, this is a strategy for survival and growth, but for the rest of the world, it is a test for manufacturing. Germany is a major example of this. Germany has always been considered a powerhouse of high-quality engineering, machines and cars. But now, China is not just selling parts or raw materials to Germany, it is giving tough competition in cars and high-tech goods too. In 2025, it came to light that Germany's trade deficit with China neared a record level, because German exports weakened in China and Chinese exports rose toward Germany. This is not just a trade number, this is a blow to Europe's industrial confidence. China's speed in electric vehicles is an even bigger story. China's automakers are aggressively entering global markets despite the domestic slowdown. In April 2026, a big jump was seen in China's passenger car exports, and the exports of new energy vehicles, meaning electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles, also rose rapidly. The meaning is clear. China's car companies are no longer fighting just inside China. They are entering Australia, Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and other markets on the strength of price and scale. But this story is not limited to cars alone. Solar panels, batteries, chemicals, steel, textiles, machinery, electronics, toys, furniture, and daily use goods. Everywhere, China's capacity stands ready to sell to the world. If America imposes a tariff, Chinese exporters send the goods to other markets instead of America. If Europe sets up barriers, the goods go to Africa, Latin America, or Southeast Asia. If direct exports are difficult, Chinese companies find a way to set up factories in other countries and export from there. That is why simply imposing a tariff is not an easy solution. The condition of Southeast Asian countries is the most entangled. Countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, and Thailand wanted to take advantage of the China Plus One strategy. Meaning, global companies would shift a little production away from China and set it up in their countries, jobs would come, exports would increase, and the economy would strengthen. But now, those very countries are facing a double-sided pressure. On one side, Chinese goods are entering their domestic markets cheaply, hitting local factories. On the other side, America might suspect that China is routing its goods through these countries to America. Meaning, there is a benefit but there is a threat too. The anxiety of the garment sector in Indonesia shows this exact fear. If the local textile industry cannot compete with the cheap clothes coming from China, factories shut down, jobs are lost, and pressure builds on the government. In Thailand, auto parts makers are feeling the pressure because of Chinese EVs, as the EV supply chain alters the traditional auto parts business. Brazil's car industry is raising questions about China-made vehicles too, meaning China's export flood is no longer just a problem for rich countries, it has become a question of jobs and the industrial future of developing countries. Now the question arises, what should the world do? If a country does nothing, its local manufacturers could slowly weaken. If it imposes a tariff, China might get angry, imports could become expensive, and consumers might have to pay a higher price. If it stands with America, trade and investment from China could fall into risk. If it goes too close to China, its credibility in the markets of America and Europe could be questioned. This is the reason why supply chains are no longer just a business decision, they have become a geopolitical decision. India stands at a very important place in this entire story. On one hand, there is an opportunity for India because the world wants to reduce its dependence on China. From Apple to electronics, pharma, textiles, auto components, and renewable energy, India can present itself as an alternative manufacturing hub in many sectors. Production-linked incentive schemes, the infrastructure push, ports, logistics, and the domestic market give an advantage to India. But on the other hand, the threat is just as big, because if Chinese goods start entering India at very cheap prices, pressure could increase on Indian MSMEs and small manufacturers. India's trade imbalance with China is already a major concern. In 2025, China became India's top trade partner, and India's trade deficit with China reached around $112.6 billion. What this means is that India buys a massive amount from China, but is unable to sell that much to China. This deficit is not just a story of mobile phones or electronics, it includes industrial machinery, components, chemicals, solar equipment, active pharmaceutical ingredients, and many intermediate goods. The biggest question for India is a cheap import always good? For a consumer, a cheap mobile, a cheap appliance, a cheap solar panel, or a cheap electronic product can look good. But if that same cheap item causes a local factory to close, a local supplier to vanish, and jobs to decrease, then in the long term the economy can weaken. Creating this exact balance is the hardest part. India will have to walk very carefully between consumer interest and manufacturing protection. India cannot remain completely untouched, because the global supply chain is connected. If Chinese goods create pressure in Europe and Southeast Asia, producers from there will search for other markets too. If global prices fall, Indian exporters will have to compete at lower prices as well. If China makes solar panels or EV components very cheap, the cost of the Indian green energy transition can decrease, but the dream of domestic manufacturing could weaken. Meaning, the very same Chinese supply that is a benefit for one sector can become a threat to another sector. India will have to avoid blind protectionism here too. An economy does not become strong by putting a tariff on every product, because many industries take components from China to manufacture final goods. If every component is made expensive, the cost for Indian manufacturers could rise. Therefore, India needs smart protection. Wherever there is dumping, there should be an anti-dumping duty. Wherever there is a critical dependence, domestic capacity should be built. Wherever there is a technology gap, there should be a foreign partnership. And wherever Indian companies can be competitive, they should get scale, finance, and export support. The real challenge is that China has made manufacturing a national strategy, not just a business. Their infrastructure, ports, power, credit, logistics, and policy work in one single direction. If India truly wants to become an alternative, it will have to go beyond just slogans. The speed of setting up factories, land approvals, electricity reliability, skilled labor, testing labs, export finance, port clearance, and policy stability, all of these will have to be strengthened at the ground level. Because the competition with China will not be won through headlines but through execution. The world is now entering a new trade order. Earlier, globalization meant buying from wherever you could get it cheap. Now, the meaning of globalization is changing. From where is it safe to buy, how much can a country be trusted, and which supply chain could break under war, tariffs, or political pressure. For this very reason, countries like America, Europe, Japan, and India are talking about supply chain diversification. But diversification is expensive, it is slow, and no one can build a scale like China instantly. This is China's real strength. Stopping China is difficult, because it is not just an exporter, but an entire manufacturing machine. It has raw material processing, it has components, it has factories, it has workers, it has ports, it has a shipping network, it has subsidies, and biggest of all, it has the capacity to give cheap goods to global buyers. A tariff can change the direction of this machine, but cannot stop it immediately. For India, this story is a warning as well as an opportunity. A warning, because if India does not strengthen its domestic manufacturing, cheap Chinese goods can weaken the local industry. An opportunity because if the world is troubled by China, India can become a trustworthy, democratic, and large-scale alternative. But this chance will not come on its own. For this, India will have to work on speed, quality, and cost, all three together. In the end, the question remains, whether America imposes or removes tariffs, why does it make less of a difference to China? Because China has rested its economy on an export engine. Even if domestic demand is weak, the property crisis creates pressure, and consumers cut down on spending, the factories must keep running. And when factories run, their goods find a path somewhere or the other in the world. This exact path has now stood right in front of Indonesia's jobs, Germany's car industry, Brazil's automakers, and India's manufacturing ambitions.
If this video has taught you something new, or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible. But in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.